Hi, everyone. We are here for a LinkedIn Live to talk about the 2024 tech talent mindset and, in particular, what HR teams need to know now. My name is Amy Heidersbach. I am truly grateful to work with an amazing team at Dice. We're part of the DHI group, but Dice.com has been in business for 35 years, advocating for technology professionals and their careers and helping the companies who want to hire them connect on our dual-sided marketplace. I'm our chief marketing officer, and quite frankly, more importantly, is who we'll be talking with today, Carmen Hudson. Carmen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. My name's Carmen Hudson, and I have been in the world of recruiting since the late 80s. And so that places me as someone who's been around for a long time. I worked as senior leadership at several tech companies, including Amazon and Yahoo, and at Microsoft. And I have been recruiting tech professionals for many, many years and then helping others develop their interviewing platforms as well as their approaches to interviewing, as well as sourcing tech candidates. And I recently wrote a book, the Corporate Recruiting Playbook, to help leaders and recruiters figure out how to get to the talent that they need. And I am hosting a podcast as well with other writers of books. And so I've just been just a part of the recruiting community, the tech recruiting community for many, many years.
I would say a stalwart member of that community, and not just any book, the definitive playbook. It's an amazing help and guide. So thank you for joining us today. We're going to cover where the data is coming from, and linked in the live chat here is our DICE 2024 Tech Sentiment Report. We're going to talk about what the data is saying in terms of the tech talent mindset and what HR recruiters and tech recruiters need to be thinking about. And the most important part is the discussion we'll have. And we ask that anyone on the live join in with questions and topics that you'd like to hear Carmen and I discuss. We'll have a very quick wrap up at the end. So let's talk about where the DICE Tech Sentiment Report kind of comes from. It's our annual report. It's one of our flagship pieces of research, and it really does seek to understand how tech professionals and HR professionals feel about the state of the job market and their jobs in particular. The survey went out in June, so it's recent data, to 520 responders on the tech professional side and 390 responders from externally sourced HR professionals. Those are from both direct hire organizations, so brands that have recruiting teams sourcing straight in, as well as primarily focused on those direct hiring organizations. Sorry, had a brownout there for just a heartbeat. Okay, so let's talk about some of the findings, right? Remote work is still very important. We're going to talk a lot about this, Carmen. In fact, I think we can stop at the data and get your point of view. But here's what the data says. Nearly 9 in 10 tech professionals still say remote work this year plays an important role when evaluating new opportunities. This was definitely fueled by COVID, but it's a lasting trend. Almost a third of tech professionals in our study who are required to work in an office at least one day per week report higher levels of job dissatisfaction compared to those who work from the office without a mandate to go in. So, how we communicate where we want people to work and the kind of environments we want them to succeed in is important. And clearly, even without, right, this is June data, so this is without recent headlines about some of the changes large organizations are making, employers do not seem to be on the same page. 87% of employers favor a hybrid work setting for all employees, including tech professionals, and with 27% of them mandating at least some in-office days. So there's a real chasm here. And, you know, Carmen, you're in Seattle. This is a hot topic probably over every dinner table happening in your market. But what's your point of view here? What
Well,
would you advise tech professionals?
it's really interesting. I think things have shifted since COVID required that we all work from home, or as many of us as possible work from home. And I think what has happened, especially among the tech community, is that that became the preferred way of working in most cases. And if you talk to many tech professionals, I have not surveyed them, so I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say you get a large majority who would prefer to work from home. Not surprising. And that probably existed before COVID, but post-COVID, it's probably grown because people have had the opportunity to do that. Now, I am not a believer that you can run a great team by being at home with no interaction at all 100% of the time. But I do know that, especially for tech professionals, that ability to work in an environment that is free of some of the distractions that happen in the office is often preferred, and it's often a better work environment. Compound on top of that in Seattle, where we have the most horrific traffic scenarios that you can imagine, there are just so many people who are telling us that working from home just really allows them just to have a better day, to contribute more to work. And we've had a couple of major employers here in the Seattle area who have mandated working from the office 100% of the time. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I will tell you, I was right during COVID at the head of TA for a technology firm. And it was a rich bounty of hiring people who preferred our work from home policy to other employers. And when we said that we were going to be work from home from that point forward, and we weren't ever going back to the office, we got so much interest from, I think, candidates that perhaps we would not have had access to.
Yeah.
So
We'll come back to what HR
yeah,
professionals can do. I know you have lots of ideas, and we've got some specific questions. That commute time in all of those happiness studies was one of the biggest drivers of general happiness in your day-to-day life, or unhappiness, quite frankly. And Denver traffic isn't much better these days.
no, it's not.
Let's keep moving through the data.
Sure thing.
Yeah. Just a couple more data slides. You know, work-life balance is really important in this conversation of tech talent sentiment and the mindset of where tech professionals are today. A third of them are experiencing burnout. You know, this era of efficiency and layoffs has put real pressure on the people who remain to take on more work, do more with less, right? And we're seeing that show up in some of the respondents in our study. You know, unfair pay or salary, toxic work environments, lack of recognition for the work, which doesn't cost anything, right? Are at the top of what tech professionals are saying contribute to that burnout. And a little over half of our tech professionals say they would take a pay cut for better work-life balance. This also showed up in our tech salary report at the beginning of the year, you know, where we were seeing clear signs of this being a year of opportunity, more tech professionals interested in looking for new jobs. So this is a really dynamic set of feelings and an environment for not only the talent we're hoping to recruit, but the recruiters as well.
Absolutely.
So let's keep going through the data slides, and then we'll come back to this again. Just a couple more. that I think are important. Employer branding, right, and trust are crucial for hiring. Almost all of our respondents in this latest report said that alignment with a company's vision, mission, and values impacts their decision to join a company. Quite frankly, we see this impacts our decision as consumers to buy into a brand's products. We are voting with our dollars, and we're voting with our jobs. So this is becoming more important. How do employers build that trust and build an authentic brand, something marketers have a lot of passion for, always have. 83% of our tech professionals rate company culture, again, as the most significant element of employer branding, followed by reputation, product or purpose, and still diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives. I know there's been a lot of press around de-investing in DEI. So that's something that we'll talk about as well. And again, almost all of our respondents say alignment with the company's vision, mission, and values influences their hiring decisions. So the data is really clear here. It's not fuzzy at all.
Right.
At least 8 in 10 tech professionals care very deeply about what their employer stands for. And I think this also extends into work-life balance, feeling that the culture enables a sense of belonging and inclusion that acknowledges their own needs as a productive, happy employee. I imagine this isn't a surprise to you from a data perspective.
Not at all. Not at all. I think it's actually heartening to see that what we are talking about as we are trying to attract tech professionals is what they're interested in. So if we are talking about here is who we are, this is what we're setting out to achieve, and this is how we like to do that. And our candidates are telling us that's what they want to know about, then we just need to do more and more of that, because that's a big piece that I think for a long time not necessarily was ignored, but I think that the emphasis was not there and we didn't understand the importance of this.
I agree. I think we kind of just jumped over it.
We did.
Thinking that the brand is clear because of all the messages that marketing and sales and others put out into the world. But that brand needs to really resonate with every single candidate, but also every single employee. So employer branding for new candidates and existing employees is a worthy investment. And by that, I don't necessarily mean budget dollars. If your budget is constrained, it can just be focus and time and intentionality, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, more to come on that. And let's talk about then our last bit of data here, the misalignment around some pretty important feelings around discrimination. So, almost a quarter of our tech professionals surveyed report experiencing, in this case, racial discrimination in the workplace. And the really alarming thing from our point of view is that this is up 5 points from 2021. So, let's think about what was going on in 2021. We were still working inside of a COVID environment. The vaccines were starting to come into our world. So, but that was the time when brands and businesses were really surrounding their customers and their employees with messages of security, safety, certainly employees, DEIB, the, inclusion, diversity, equity, initiatives that gave a sense of belonging were big investments because the war for talent was so fierce at that time, right? Right. So racial discrimination on the rise in our study. About the same number of responders report experiencing gender discrimination also. up 5 points from 2021. This is tough as a female leader in tech for almost 3 decades. I know you, I know and so many of the women we spoke with at HR Tech, though this isn't necessarily just a female set of responders, but for female professionals, this is still a reality. And I wish it wasn't. I wish we wouldn't have that part of this conversation. 60% of our HR professionals said, racial discrimination never or rarely occurs in their organization. So that's terrific. Also an improvement. So where's the improvement on both ends coming from? This is a really interesting question that emerged from our data. Some businesses seem to be getting better, some markedly worse. And I know you have thoughts and recommendations here. And then the final data point before we just jump into open discussion and stop looking at slides is 60% of HR professionals report gender discrimination never or very rarely occurs. So again, tech professionals are experiencing it. HR professionals are thinking it's improving. Maybe both are true, but the data is showing a misalignment, as the title says, about what's happening in the personal experiences tech professionals are having at work. So very interesting data set, but let's open it up and stop looking at slides and get into open discussion. Let's go back to the first kind of thing we talked about in remote work and employer branding. So Carmen, how can recruiters build trust when discussing the policies that their companies have? If they are not fully remote, then they're having to approach candidates with a hybrid or full return to office roles. How can they do that, especially when, and our data suggests, the majority of people want remote work?
I really think it's important for recruiters to get ahead of this, to understand deeply the policies. If they're not clear, to ensure that they're clear, because you're going to have conversations with candidates about this issue probably fairly early in your first conversations with a candidate. So it's important to be very clear. It's really important, I think, to ensure that your policies match what you want to do. So if you are looking at a hybrid model, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're requiring people to be in the office no matter what, at least 2 days a week? Then it's important that you understand that and that you communicate that you get candidates to sign off and agree to that. And I have heard of employers that are getting candidates to sign the agreements around when they will be in the office and being a little bit more formal about that. Maybe that makes sense, especially right about now. If it's loosely, as it is loosely described or loosely adhered to in your organization, as it is in many organizations, to be really clear, at least with the hiring manager and that candidate, about the agreement, because it's going to be different needs in every single case. You've got candidates who are worried about childcare. That agreement may be, you know what, I will be in the office, but I won't be able to get there until 10. And if that's unacceptable, you're in the office, it's not at typical work hours, but that works for us, then be very clear about that. I think these are discussions that we haven't had to have, quite frankly, at least at this level. And we've got to make sure that we're having them at the right level, and then making sure that we're building into our organizations a policy. Because if I want to work from home and someone in this department's working from home, I don't understand. I don't understand why. And I feel as if I am being unfairly attacked. And that isn't good either.
I've seen this. You mentioned departments, where some departments have different policies than others. What do you think about that?
I think that at this stage, we've got to get companies that, can clearly articulate their work from home, work from the office policy, and do that with a blanket statement. And so it only confuses It really does not help the situation if you've got someone looking at someone else getting that benefit or what they view as a benefit, and your department does not allow that. That is not going to create any kind of trust from the employee with the employer. And so you really want to, I think at this point, we've got to manage it. And we've got to look at it carefully. We've got to look at it each quarter. Is it working for us? Are people coming into the office? Does this actually help us perform better? I think one of the things that was interesting in the 2021 period and beyond is that we had some of the greatest performance numbers in terms of Wall Street for many companies, and employees were almost 100% at home. And so let's think about that. Let's think about, are we able to get the performance that we need? Does it matter? I think other issues come into play. In Seattle here, we had such a vibrant downtown community, which went away after COVID. And so having people come back downtown to the offices will actually help the economy and help, I think, many other companies survive and do well. And so we have to think about that.
Yeah.
I was a staunch, let's all work from home, until I started thinking about what does this do to impact our community. And so I backed off a little bit.
So I'm hearing, radical transparency and supported by clear policies that are socialized and well understood by the organizations. But, one of the things we see is, all the way to the role description really needs to be radically transparent, because if you say Austin or remote, and what you really expect is that somebody's going to be in Austin 2 days a week, well, that isn't radically transparent in the role description, and
100%
sets the wrong tone in terms of building trust from the jump. So then if employer branding plays such an important role in establishing trust with tech professionals in particular, but I'm in marketing, that's important to me and the folks on my team as well. How can recruiters highlight, the authentic aspects of company culture that's so important to them, to further deepen trust, or you could say assuage skeptical candidates?
100%. I think one of the things that we have to start thinking about is, how do we do this differently? We've relied on our websites to carry these messages for the most part for the last, 20 years. And that may not be the place where information is most trusted or sought after. And we have to think about our individual communications with candidates and whether or not we're actually sharing information that's relevant to them. So if it's about our work from the office or work from home policy, if it's about our childcare policy, if it's about the way that we work together, whatever that piece of your company culture that you think will appeal to that candidate, you should be able to provide some information that feels as if it's a little bit more than, hey, here's all the information for the public. It should feel a little bit more, here's an information that we're providing to people that we really care about and want to come work for our company. It means putting in a little bit more effort, perhaps a little bit more polish, a little bit more data around what we're sharing with actual candidates.
So interesting to hear you say that, because you're speaking my language, Carmen. Personalized, targeted communications, and
Yes.
It makes me think that recruiters are in many cases, and maybe I'm biased, clearly I'm biased, they're employer marketers.
Employer
And
marketers.
what we spend a lot of time doing in marketing is understanding our buying committees and our target customers, the personas. We now have the technology to deliver more personalized, real-time messages to them, and continue to hone those personas. And if recruiting teams haven't done that for their candidate pools, it might be a really great exercise to understand, let's talk tech professionals. We know that early in career professionals are very different and want and crave and expect different messages than mid-career or even tenured. Diverse candidates, we know, expect and want different types of messages. Now, some may overlap, but you're talking about being really good marketers to your candidate databases and understanding how to segment and then deliver personalized messages. Because you're right, the website and kind of a wide net casting overall certainly doesn't do much to build employer trust.
It doesn't. It did, right? And it was much better than what we had, which was the newspaper beforehand to find and attract candidates.
True.
So it
Yeah.
has done a great job of perhaps branding our company, and it does a great job of promoting our jobs that we have open. But does it go much more deeply into what is it like to actually work in this environment? And
Yeah.
what are some of the things that I can expect? And what are some of the things that I might be disappointed by, but I need to know about before I accept an offer with this company? So I am just a big fan of delivering more to candidates than perhaps we're used to delivering. And I
Yeah.
think that as things progress, that's what's going to be expected of us as recruiters.
Yeah, I maybe there's a new collab in the making between HR and marketing to achieve this too.
Right.
Transparency. So you're talking about how we need to do more now, and transparency is so important. But a lot of companies have had layoffs. They
Yes.
have had restructuring. They have tough Glassdoor reviews. And there's so much more information available to candidates in other places besides the recruiter direct
Hmm.
communication, besides a platform like Dice, which is terrific at connecting candidates and recruiters in a personal way, besides the website. So, how would you say recruiters should think about balancing staying positive and transparent with also painting a realistic picture about what's going on in the organization that sets the employee up for success and longer tenure?
Transparency is just that. It's acknowledging what's great about your company and sharing that information, but it's also acknowledging what's missing, what could be improved, the communication that exists, and addressing that directly. If you sort of wait and you hope that it doesn't show up, well, it's likely going to show up, but not in front of you. So you want to make sure that you understand how are we going to address that. We just had, 6 months ago, a major layoff that was in the news. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about why we did that. Let's talk a little bit about how that impacted our employees, and let's talk a little bit about why we have this need now, and put that together as a solid talking point. If you aren't able to do that, you aren't ready to recruit, because candidates are smart. They have as much information and access to information as you have, so they're thinking about this, even if they don't bring it up to you. They're talking about it with their friends. They're looking online. They're looking at Glassdoor. So
Ah,
it really is, to your advantage to think about how do we address this, and to just go forth. And quite frankly, most candidates would be happy with that. They would be thrilled to have that kind of conversation.
if you're not ready to talk about the why, you're not ready to recruit. Best soundbite from the conversation. One more question, just really briefly. How important is it for recruiters to have a strong personal brand in this process of building trust with anyone, but especially tech professionals?
I think it's really important. It's throughout my career, it's what I prided myself on. So very early on, I had many hiring managers and many candidates who went on to have great careers. And I would try to stay in their lives in some way. And I have all kinds of little tricks and ways of doing that, so that when it came to getting referrals, when it came to talking with a potential employee about the culture or things that weren't going so well, that I had some trust there, that people sort of knew, well, this is Carmen and this is where she has worked and this is what she's telling me, and I pretty much believe her. So it is important to continue to develop that muscle. Doesn't happen all at once.
Yeah.
But once it does, you kind of know that it does, because people will refer you as the recruiter to other potential candidates, or you will start to see that your voice becomes something that even people who are not interested in joining your company, they'll seek you out for your opinion. And that
Yeah.
to me is some of the best, I think some of the best impact that I may have had.
And it's a
Um,
long-term game for sure. Umar's
it
got a
is.
question. Could you please give us a few tips about how to approach a candidate that's looking for remote work, even though the job location might be geographically very close to them? What would you do?
So you've got a candidate who's looking for remote work, but you've got a work from the office job, but that may be very close. Especially in this environment where the economy is, I don't know, every day they have a different way of describing it, so I don't know what to exactly call it. But jobs aren't as plentiful as they perhaps once were, and that will likely change. But right now, a great job is a valuable thing. And so I would start with, this isn't a remote job. It is in the office. It is close to you. And here are the three things that you might want to consider. And if you don't get a great response or a response that you're looking for, that's okay. It's fine to pass by that candidate, because that candidate would never be happy if they want 100% remote and you can't offer that. You don't want to offer them the job. You just
Yeah,
have to
it could
move
it
on.
could just be, we can't get a meeting of the minds. But
Yeah.
if you go back to the data in the study, um, if you can reinforce that coming into the office, whether it's hybrid or full return to office, can still the ways in which the company still reports work-life balance to not lead to burnout, right?
That's it. That's it.
To have a sense of belonging, and productivity, right? Recognition,
All of that.
all of the things that we know contribute to burnout and feeling out of whack from a work life perspective. I think it's important to have answers to those things. The benefits of not fully remote work to you are going to be not compromising your work life balance because we do these things,
Right.
not feeling burnout because we do these things. So look to the data, Umar. I think you can find some point counterpoint, to really understand at least what tech professionals are feeling and build a authentic and transparent narrative for them. That's
Yeah.
a great question, and I don't see any others. So what we'll do is just take a moment to thank you for investing some of your most precious commodity, which is your time, Carmen, in this conversation. And with Dice, so much recently, Carmen was with us at HR Tech. You've been on our podcast recently. We can put that link in the chat here, or just reach out, go to the Dice website for that podcast, which just released yesterday, I believe. Look, uh, our time is precious. We know we're all competing for the best talent. When it comes to tech talent, I'd love to just remind folks that Dice is, for 35 years, just been obsessed with technology professionals and helping companies find the best talent. So if you're in the market for the best in tech, check out that tech sentiment report link. Come talk with us at Dice. We're in still some interesting times, right? But we certainly see bright futures for tech professionals ahead in all kinds of places, including building AI skills and new type of skills in cybersecurity and other hot spaces. And we've got some thoughts on that too. So thank you very much, Carmen.
Well,
Have a wonderful
thank you for having me. And I wanted to definitely just give you a shout out for the work that you do in serving this community and the work that you've done over the years. Sometimes when you're looking for data, there's not a lot out there. There's not a lot of consistent data. So it's great that you have consistently surveyed both the salary report and then the report of around HR and tech professionals. It's useful to our community. So thank you for doing that.
Well, that is just the shot in the arm I and my team needed to get through a busy, busy week. So thank you so much, and appreciate everyone who listened in live or on the recording. Thank you, Andy,